So, as with chapter 4, I'm going to leave a basic question up to you. I've asked you for the reading question forum to grapple with the argument in this paragraph, and I'll read through it with you. But the answer is up to you for you to assemble Locke's reasoning out of what follows, the text that follows this on page 12 in chapter 5, and your own understanding, your own grasp of the argument. But let's begin. We see Locke's sign that he's going to let somebody else speak, his imaginary opponent, so that you is the one who is reading along and not agreeing and always posting strong objections. And of course, as I say, this is the way Locke makes his own argument strong, to make them real and solid objections. This person imagines another way to combine the church and the state and to let the two cooperate in a way that seems natural to the man who is speaking against Locke. And what kind of perfect cooperation is that between the church and the state? In this person's view, it's religion that decides religious questions. Locke in general couldn't say that was improper. That is his view. It shouldn't be the civil magistrate, that is, the officials of the government, who decide them. But religious questions should be decided by religious bodies from the church. And then it's the job of the civil magistrate, the government official, to order us to obey the church, to do what government does, which is to say, to make laws and enforce them under the guidance of the church. And so that there's a perfect partnership in this other person's view between the church doing what it does best and the government doing what it does best, and that is to use authority over the members of the Commonwealth, the members of the nation, of the country, and so to ensure by the authority of the government that the church's decisions are respected. The perfect partnership of church and state, on this other view, is that no one would do or think anything as it involves religion, except according to what the best religious authorities know. And so that would take a partnership of the church and the state. The church then would just be doing what churches do, making judgments in religious matters. And the government or the magistrate would be doing what governments do, following advice and enforcing obedience through the laws. Whichever one, including the magistrate. This person does not imagine hypocrisy. I don't have to do it, but I can make you do it. No, in the best cooperation, there should be none of that hypocrisy. But the government should enforce laws, and the religious body should decide what the laws ought to be, and that would be the perfect relation of church and state. So then it's up to you to follow Locke's argument and to argue back against this imagined. Visit chapter 6 and finish our reading. I'm concerned here most with a series of examples that Locke gives that test his theory. That's what I've asked you about in the reading questions for the discussion forum. I've said several times that Locke's argument is strong because he bases it on clear and complete logical distinctions. He lays the foundation properly so that the logic of his argument can grow straight from that beginning. But at the same time, he's we could wonder whether it's absolutely clear. After all, one of his distinctions is the distinction between soul and body, which is fairly clear to us, but is it completely clear if we think about a certain action that might be a bad act? It could be condemned by religion, or it could be condemned by the state. And can we tell in each case whether it belongs to the body and therefore is for the state to punish, or belongs to the soul and is therefore right for religion to take account of it? Many things many actual actions it would be hard to assign either to the soul or the body. I mean, after all, if you drink so much on Thursday night that you're too hungover to get out of bed and go pray on Friday morning, the religion would not approve of that. But is that a bad thing you've done with your soul, or a bad thing you've done with your body? And you might think you have a good, clear answer to that, but is it clear enough that you could persuade other people who don't think the way you do and would not like to be persuaded? Religions, to take another example, religions also often police our sexuality. And if we do the wrong thing with our sexuality, have we done it with our bodies or with our souls? This is not so clear. So Locke, in addition to laying down the clearest logical foundation he can, also makes his argument persuasive by seeking out, actively trying to find strong counterarguments. And one thing he does is to pose what seem to be difficult examples. Actions that we can't say belong either to the church or to the state, to religion or the state. And rules that might be worldly rules, secular rules, state rules, or might be meaningful most for the next life and the next world and religion. So we should be true to Locke's practice of raising difficulties for the argument as we look at what he does. So on to chapter 6. Here on the first page, there's an argument that is basic and that we should be reminded of. He's going to lay down a principle of toleration, that the magistrate, as always his name for somebody who works for the government, cannot use the civil law to enforce any rite or ceremonies for the worship of God. And so the prayers we do, the repeated actions we do, those are called rites or ceremonies. Those things like putting on a funny robe and walking down the aisle to the music called pomp and circumstance at graduation, those would be rites and ceremonies. And in religion, we do those things in order to honor God. And Locke lays down the principle of toleration, that the government enforcers can't tell you to do certain things or not to do certain things, that they're protected if they are the ceremonies of religion, the ceremonies to worship God. And that's a clear principle, but is it clear enough? And our job now is to try to test that by examples. Now, one argument in the favor of toleration that I'd like us to remember is that for Locke, religion is that part of life where it matters that people do things sincerely and not just for show. The government doesn't care. And if you pay your taxes, then you're okay. And if you pay them but you don't really want to, or you make a big show of paying them because you want to impress somebody with being a good citizen, but you don't really mean it in your heart, the government is indifferent to that. Doesn't make any difference to the government. They just want the money, and you're legal if you paid. But in religion, the decision goes the other way. If you give to your religious institution for charity or just to keep the religious institution going, and you don't really want to, or you do it so that other people will be impressed rather than because you want the money to be used in the way that it will be used, then that's not good enough. That's wrong by religion. So there is that distinction. In government, sincerity doesn't matter, but in religion it does. So it's a strong argument and a basic distinction that we keep in mind. And now to the examples that test all those distinctions between sincerity and insincerity, between soul and body, between this life and the next life. Here again, Locke imagines, you see at the bottom, the marker, you say he imagines somebody arguing against him. Does this mean that for all those things you could do in a ceremony or a ritual, the government has no power over those things? Well, that just seems wrong. All sorts of things, the clothes we wear, when and where we walk, what music we play, what we eat and drink, which animals we kill, all of those things seem like government business. But at the same time, they're the things that make up religious ceremonies. So can we say that we really have a sharp and clear distinction? And I'm going to leave it up to you to make a decision about that, to articulate it. What I'd like for the discussion forum is for you to dream up the hardest example you can, the one that would give Locke the hardest time. And that will be a way to show that you've understood his principles and that you're thinking them through for yourself. And you can post your example. And when you've done that, you can look at other people's examples and to see whether you can rescue Locke's argument from those charges. Somebody else has put up what seems to be a difficulty. Here's something you could do, and it's not clear whether the religion could say it was good or bad, or whether maybe the government should prevent it, stop it, even though religion says it's good, or that the government could require it, even though religion says it's bad. If somebody else has found an example that seems compelling to that person, can you save Locke's argument by showing that no, his arguments really allow us to make a sharp distinction between what religion can decide and what governments can decide?